For those of you that don't know me, my name is Liz Landry. I am the KW Talent Community Leader and an executive coach focused on organizational leadership. So, what does that actually mean? That means I focus on all those nitty gritty things behind the scenes that nobody really likes to talk about. You know, the unsexy stuff like managing people, hiring, developing, firing, and the way that we structure our businesses behind the scenes. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And the topic of our conversation today is something I like to call the operator trap. And so, what the operator trap actually is a place that we tend to get stuck as we grow our businesses. And it happens uniquely to small business entrepreneurs when we begin to grow our business from the ground up, particularly when we start alone, which is, unless you were blessed with, capital contribution somewhere, where most of us start, right? And a lot of entrepreneurs find themselves in what is the operator trap. Now, the operator trap, we're going to get into in some detail today, and feel free to ask questions, put it in the chat box. I've got my chat box over here so I can talk to you guys throughout the session, or you can just come off of mute. You're welcome to. But the operator trap is the idea that the person we start as in our business, right? And as we get going, we are all things. We are the operator. We are the salesperson. We are the HR department. We're the customer service line. We're lead generation. We're payroll department. We do everything, and we have to do that to get the business moving. But as our businesses evolve and as we evolve and grow in revenue, the challenge becomes the thing we designed to give us freedom and flexibility and to provide a life by design for many entrepreneurs becomes a prison that we're built inside of. And we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about exactly how you get out of that if you find yourself stuck. The challenge is you can get stuck a lot of different places along the way. It's not just one spot that's like, oh, look, I'm here and I got to get out of here. No, it happens over and over and over again as we go through. And so that's what we're going to look at today is this idea of the operator trap, how we fall into it, how we get out of it, and what to do next, depending on where you're at. Sound good? All right. Well, Don, and thank you for being off camera or being on camera. I appreciate it. It's always nice when you've got somebody on there. So let's talk about this idea a little bit more and kind of how I got to working in this sector of business, if you will. Because like many entrepreneurs, I got to a point where things had just become heavy. And I remember the exact moment, clear as day, that I realized I didn't own a business. I owned a job. And it happened in the middle of the night. I was laying in bed. It was about 2 a.m. And I woke up in a full panic. I was about 3 years into running my own business at this point, maybe a little bit less than 3 years. And the thing is, running a business was nothing new to me. I had come from a large retail management background, and I had had up to 200 employees at any given time before I decided to start my own business as a real estate agent from the ground up. And so I looked into this and I was like, I can do this. I've managed employees before. I've been in charge of $15 million of revenue. Like, I got this. I can do this. But it's a whole different world when you start solo by yourself from the ground up. And a couple of years into it, that grind was beginning to take its toll on me. Getting that business off the ground was beginning to wear. And what happened was I woke up at 2 a.m. in a full-blown panic because I could hear my phone ringing. You know those panics where you wake up and you're like, did I turn the stove off? Oh my gosh, is the iron on? Is my hair straightener going to be on a towel? Right? Panic, heart racing, sweats, anxiety. But it was because I could hear my phone ringing. And it was those old Palm Trios. If you've been in business since 2008, 2009, you probably know the ring. If you're over 40 years old, you probably had one of those. It was either BlackBerry or a Palm Trio gang. And I was part of the Palm Trio gang. And it was so real. I could feel it in my bones. So when I jumped up and I reached for my phone on the nightstand, it wasn't there. The thing is, I had started leaving it in the other room on the other side of the house, charging at night because I needed it to be away from me. It was in the kitchen. It wasn't sitting next to me. So the idea that I could hear my phone ringing was all in my head. Even with the phone in the other room, the business was still following me into my sleep. I couldn't get away from it. And it felt like there was 1,000 pounds sitting on my chest because that phone ringing meant one very distinct thing. It meant that my business needed something from me. And I had nothing left to give at that point. There was nothing. I was just stuck, trapped in this heavy thing that I called my business. But the reality is, it wasn't a business. It really was a job at that point in times. So let me ask you guys, you can put into the chat, if you would, how many of you have ever felt like the business is running you more than you're running it? Like you are subject to what the business wants and needs from you at that point in time. Like you are on call from the business, that your team, you are there to work for them. And while, yes, we can disguise that and call it servant leadership, it's one thing if it's servant leadership. It's a whole nother thing if it's like you're getting whipped around with, hey, you got a minute. Hey, I need a quick question. Or this inspection came back wrong and we don't know what to do. So even if you are solo or you've got a team, there does come a point where the business begins to run us if we don't make a change in it, that it becomes the thing that holds us down. Instead of being the freedom we designed, it feels exhausting in a way that we just never thought was even possible. So today we're going to learn what I learned in that phase. So hopefully I can save you some of the problems. And these are built on proven frameworks, years of coaching. I've got 35,000 coaching sessions under my belt, working with people to solve these exact problems. Now, when we started, I said a very important fact. I realized that I didn't own a business. I owned a job, right? Because laying there that night with all those thoughts running through my head, I had to admit something to myself. I couldn't keep doing it the way that I was doing it. It wasn't working. There was anxiety, there was exhaustion, there was margins that were getting thinner, and I was losing myself to the business. I had no hobbies, I had no real downtime, no dinners without a phone or a laptop sitting next to me. It wasn't that I was building a business. I had become the business at that point. And when I talk to entrepreneurs every day, I hear the same things from them. I can't slow down. I know I need to focus more on the business versus in the business, but it's just not possible. I don't have the time. I don't have the bandwidth. If I slow down, people won't do business with me anymore. We won't generate the revenue. But there's hidden costs that come with operating at that. When you're responsible for everything, it comes at a cost to the founder. It doesn't come at a cost to your team members, it comes at a cost to you. It costs you your time. It costs you your energy. It costs you your peace. And it costs you the happiness. And here's the trap. The more the revenue grows, the heavier that weight actually becomes if you have it to begin with. The problem isn't how hard we work as entrepreneurs. Nobody can deny that entrepreneurs are hardworking people. You have to be to get your business off of the ground. The challenge is there comes a point when hard work stops working. And the role that we play in our organization has to change if we want the business to become lighter and to actually provide us the freedom that we dreamed about instead of just being the thing that we carry. So, what happens to businesses as they grow? What we've learned is that every business goes through 4 distinct stages as it grows. And that is not just the business, it is the founder of the business as well. But there's a really sticky moment in the middle where things can get a little chaotic. And every business is going to hit this spot. And if you don't understand that this moment exists, this is where we stay trapped, no matter how much your business grows in revenue. I call this spot the gap. The gap is that messy middle area. not a messy middle volume, but a messy middle operational and leadership standpoint that we are operating in. We get there because we get to the second level of the way the business operates and we're growing, but we get stuck in this gap because we decide to start scaling from there. But the reality is the business isn't meant to scale from there. So what happens when we decide to scale at this? Well, we scale our responsibility, not our actual freedom. And I, like many of you, did the same thing at this point in time when I found myself in this. I did what most people do. I tried to fix it by hiring more people, right? Because when we've reached a point where we're doing all we can do, we're stretched thin, our natural inclination is to add more people. I'll hire somebody that will give me leverage and that'll fix it. This does not solve the problem if you're not ready to scale at this point. Because when you've reached the point that you're doing all you can do when you are solo, hiring is the exact right answer. That's absolutely it. You cannot go further unless you hire. So our mind does what it always does. It thinks, if I hired the first time and it bought me freedom, but now I've reached the point where I'm doing all I can do again, if I hire again, it will buy me back more time. The challenge is that's not how this level of business works. Because you see, at the beginning, you're doing everything. Step one, you are the doer. This is what I call no leverage, the true solopreneur, right? You're the marketer, you're the salesperson, you're the operator. You are truly doing everything. It all runs through you. That's where all of you likely started at this point. That's normal, right? We have this dream and we're really good at something. And so by being really good at that, maybe you were really good at sales, or maybe you're really good with connecting with people. Maybe you ran a lawn service business and you were really great at it. It typically happens because we're very good at a trade. We reach the point where we do all that we can, and the business now needs something else to grow. So what happens? Well, this is where we reach the second level on the leverage ladder. This is when you become a manager. I call this level task leverage, right? You hire people and now you're managing everything. Every decision still flows through you, though. So, this phase, when we're working at task leverage, if you think about the day that you stopped being a solopreneur and you made your first hire, your new hire shows up, and all of a sudden you realize that everything you've ever done lives right here in your head. That every process, every system, every bit of context, every bit of judgment is here. You know, you put that sign, that for sale sign, 6 paces in from the road, because if you put it 4 paces in from the road, the city is going to come by and take it because of zoning restrictions, right? We have to convey that context. So all of a sudden, you hire somebody for freedom and leverage, but your job gets harder. Anybody notice that when you made your first hire, all of a sudden it got twice as hard instantly? You're like, why did it get so hard? It got so hard because your very first hire, and really the beginning days of when you hire anybody in your business, whether that's your first hire or your 15th hire, they are only able to execute what you tell them because they simply don't know your business yet. I was speaking in Florida a couple of weeks ago to a few market centers up there and some ALC members. And there was about 100 people in the room. And I asked them, I said, how many of you felt like your business got lighter when you made your first hire? Nobody raised their hand immediately. And I said, well, why is that? And they said, well, now I've got to train this person. And I said, great. How many of you, after a period of time, say 6 months, felt your business got lighter? And then a few people raised their hand. And then I asked the next question and I said, how many of you ended up feeling like having that employee cost you more money than it was worth, and it never really gave you back the time that you desired in that process? So inevitably, you either let them go or when they left, you never replaced them. And almost half of the room raised their hand. They had gone back to solo agent. When we started talking about why, and they said, well, they started off strong, but I had to tell them everything and I was doing all these things. And then they just weren't as good in the long run as I thought they were. And here's the challenge on that. That's what task leverage really is. Task leverage is those early days of delegation when we are conveying context to somebody and explicitly telling them what to do. So, out of those 100 people that were in that room, you have 100 different business models. You have 100 different ways of running a transaction. You have 100 different seller follow up plans after an appointment. You have 100 different listing presentations. Every one of those businesses was built uniquely in the vision of the founder. While, yes, they are all in the real estate lane, and yes, they all kind of follow the MREA and the Keller Williams models, they're spanning anywhere from 0 to 100 on a scale of independent, dependent, interdependent. So they're all uniquely different. So, especially when we hire somebody from outside industry, they have zero idea how to do what we need them to do. If we hire somebody from in industry, they have context and understanding of the task, but not necessarily how you want it done. That's why this phase is so heavy, because you are having to convey all the context explicitly out of your brain to somebody else's. Let's use a really easy example. Let's use the example of taking out the trash. If I go to my employee, I walk in the morning, and I notice the trash hasn't been taken out. It's their first week on the job. Maybe they don't even know where the trash goes. That's okay. And I tell them, hey, Bob, I need you to take out the trash today. Bob says, great, no problem. Well, I come back from my listing appointment at 3 or 4 o'clock and the trash isn't taken out. I say, Bob, I asked you to take out the trash this morning. Why is it still here? And Bob says, oh, well, I was going to get it on my way out. And I think to myself, well, why would you do that? It smells. Why would you not just take it out when I asked you to take it out? So I have to ask Bob again. And I say, Bob, can you take the trash out now? It kind of stinks. And he says, oh, yeah, no problem. Bob takes the trash out. And then the next day, I realize that somebody put something in the trash overnight. And I look at Bob again. I said, hey, Bob, can you take the trash out? It stinks again. Bob says, yeah, sure. Bob takes it out quicker this time, but I'm only telling Bob explicitly what I want him to do. I'm not giving him the context. I'm not handing over the ownership, and I'm not giving him detail about it, right? That's what handing off at task leverage looks like in those beginning days, especially when we're not trained on how to actually delegate properly. Let's look at what task leverage delegated properly actually looks like in this same scenario. Delegated properly, it would be me the first day noticing the trash needs to be taken out, realizing I never taught Bob that he needed to do that. Saying, Bob, can you take the trash out? I'd like to have this done and make sure it's done at the end of every day. And if it's forgotten for some reason or something stinky gets put in the morning, we need to make sure we get it out by 10 a.m. to the dumpster. The dumpster is located behind the building because at 10 a.m., the trash truck comes and actually takes it. This is context. Bob now understands why I want the trash taken out quickly, when I want him to do it, where it goes, and why that needs to happen. This context is the thing that has always lived in our brain where we know all the small parts that we need to convey. It requires us to slow down. And does that take more time when you're training your new employee? You betcha. It sure does. It's faster and easier for you to do it. But the challenge is if you are the one who holds the context and you are constantly having to tell Bob, Bob, I need you to take the trash out today. Now that's one more thing on your plate. The decision is routing through you. You never get out of it. Now, when Bob starts to learn how to take the trash out and you tell Bob to take the trash out, does that save you a little bit of time every time? Yes. Task leverage gets you incremental gains and time back. If somebody is doing 30 minutes worth of work, you're probably getting 20 to 25 minutes back. You're not getting 30 though, because you are still having to explain and delegate and train in a way that makes sure the task gets done. We call this task leverage because at some point in your business, you have probably had somebody and you're like, they were a great taskmaster, but nothing got done unless I told them how to get it done. This is the way every employee starts. It's up to us to get them past that. If we don't get them past that, they never get there. So let's move on to what happens next. This is our painful moment that I talked about earlier. And this is really the trap. This is where the operator traps form. And almost everybody who has ever built a business has gotten stuck here. It's where you have a team, but you are still the decision maker on everything. Everything escalates to you. Everyone asks you before making a decision. Nothing gets done if you don't tell them it needs to get done. There's no ownership being taken, there's no initiative being taken. This is the trap. Because what happens, especially if we scale task leverage, meaning, hey, I got 25 minutes back, and then we give Bob more tasks and more tasks and more tasks. And we realize that, well, yes, it's taking me 10 hours a week to manage Bob. I got 20 hours back. We hire another person, right? And we bring them in and they're operating at task leverage. And now we're telling them the tasks they need to get done, right? Bob might be the EA managing all of our transactions and our listings, but now we've got a marketing person and a social media coordinator. And we begin moving them through this phase. And yeah, the first 90 days is really hard. But then we're getting 20 hours a week back and things are happening in marketing, but we're still spending 10 hours a week managing this person. Can you see where this is going? By the time you hire your third person at this level, you're spending 30 hours a week managing people. But when do you actually do your job now? Your job gets pushed into after hours, evenings, weekends, and that's your job. That's not even counting your work as the owner. Because what happens if we scale task leverage is we get stuck here. And this becomes the bottomless pit that eats our calendar unless we're aware of it and we know how to get out of it. But there is a way out of it. And that's when you shift into what I call talent leverage and you become, instead of the manager, the leader. This is when you stop being the person with all the answers and you start building people who can actually think. Because let's look at our same scenario with Bob, the trash. The difference in teaching Bob to take out the trash and letting him know that that's his assignment to do, and then I correct him when he does it wrong, and then I give him context and I impart that context onto him. That's great. But if something goes wrong, Bob's probably still going to ask me. Bob's probably going to come to me when he takes out the trash and then says, well, but where are the trash bags? And hey, I've been taking out the trash, but I've noticed that we're still having problems with the dumpster. Can you call them and get that fixed? They're not doing it. They're not emptying it on time. Or I've asked our three other people to take out the trash, but they're not doing their jobs, right? All of those things come back. Or there's a crack in the trash can. Can you order a new trash can for us? And it's like, yeah, sure. All these tiny little things that get put onto your plate, right? Now let's look at what it looks like at talent leverage when we're actually handing off ownership. Same scenario. Bob's been operating and taking out the trash for 60 days. Easy task. Bob's capable. He's smart. I've given him the judgment. Like, he's got this. Then we have an explicit conversation. And this is where most of us as leaders miss the next step because we assume that ownership of that responsibility now lives with Bob, but it doesn't until we explicitly hand it off. It still lives with us. So what we have to do is say, Bob, you've been taking out the trash for about 60 days now. And it's going great. You're getting it out on time. We're not having stinky stuff anymore. That's awesome. Thank you. I want to let you know I appreciate it. And I also want to let you know that everything that has to do with the trash from now on is yours to own. If we run out of trash bags, I want you to make sure you go ahead and you place the order. If the trash can gets broken, that's yours to own too. If you notice that the trash company is not picking up the dumpster, it's going to be your job to call them and get that taken care of. You own this now. I don't want questions about it coming back to me. Now Bob knows that it explicitly lives with him, right? This is his to own. Now, was it in his job description always take out the trash? Sure. But now this is yours to own all aspects of it. I don't want it coming back to me, right? And if the trash bag gets put on devastatingly wrong, we're going to go to Bob and say, Bob, I noticed the trash bag wasn't put on great. Can you find a better system so that it doesn't slump down into the trash can? Not, Bob, I need you to use a better tie around the outside because it's slumping in. Here's one, I bought it for you. right? No rescuing. We typically rescue, no rescuing. This is the difference in what task leverage does. Task leverage attaches the desired outcome and hands off the ownership of it so it doesn't come back to us. Now let's relate it to something a little bit more work related. If I ask my assistant and I say, can you get me the reports for the oak leaf plantation community on pricing for last month? She's going to say, sure. She can run that report. She can easily get it to me. But if I go to her and I say, Angela, we need better pricing strategy on our listings in Oak Leaf Plantation. Can you run all of the necessary reports and imply the context that we need and advise me on what you think we need to do to make sure that that happens? And by the way, I want you to run this on a monthly basis and bring it to our team meeting. I'm telling her my desired outcome. I'm handing it off to her and I'm allowing her to design the path. This is a different level of ownership on here. And this is when talent leverage really begins to take hold. Because here at talent leverage, we can begin to scale. And here's the thing, talent leverage isn't about how many people you hire. You can reach this with your very first and only hire. It is about the way we lead and about the way they own their jobs. The number one reason I find that people live here in task leverage, meaning our employees, right? Great taskmasters, and we're constantly having to tell them what to do. It's not actually them, it's us. Because when we see something wrong, we step in and correct it. When we see them do something we don't like, we start getting hesitant. And instead of coaching it on the back end, we correct it on the front end. We tell them before that flyer goes out, I just want to take a look at it. And I want to make sure it's to standard. If they've proven they can get to standard enough, that comes the moment where we explicitly need to move them in that wheelhouse to this part. It's us that holds them back. It's our fear of control. It's our fear of coaching on the backside. It's our fear of slowing down and staying far enough away from the work, but close enough to it to be observing it. This is all in the way that we lead and our identity to it. Because the challenge is we're really important at this phase. We're needed everywhere. Our customers depend on us, and hard work has always rewarded us with revenue gains and incremental increases. This doesn't reward us in the same way. But the difference here is when we reach talent leverage, this is when you're not just getting incremental gains where you're handing off a task and getting 20 minutes back. This actually gets us exponential gains because the mental workload is transitioning off of you. And that makes a huge difference. Now, obviously, there is a fourth level. And any business that wants to scale beyond 2 people should be reaching this level. And this is when the business runs without your constant supervision. This is leadership leverage. This is when you truly start operating as the owner. Now, you can reach this with 2 team members, right? You hire your first assistant, your second assistant nests under your first assistant. Not everyone's going to do it that way. I recommend doing it that way, but not everyone's going to. Sometimes we'll have 2 or 3 people reporting to us before we start instituting even the first bit of pressure relief of leadership leverage. But it doesn't mean you need to have a team of 15 before you do this. At this level, the business runs without your constant presence. And what happens is that ownership in that context is now being pushed down through the ranks by your people instead of just by you. You are now operating at a higher level. The majority of your days are spent on owner activities, not operator activities. And the larger you get, the more those conversations shift. Because when you are working with your team member and handing off ownership, that starts to breed a culture. But when your team members are then passing that down through the ranks to their teams, that is a culture lived through an organization. And that makes a huge difference. Because I want to point out this part. You don't get freedom from hiring people. You get freedom from building talent leverage and building leaders in your organization. Those are leaders who lead their own role, and then those are leaders who lead others, right? Because at talent leverage, that's self-leadership in their role. Sure, you are leading them, but they're also leading themselves because they have ownership of those activities because we've explicitly given it to them. It's a difference in what someone's going to be capable of. Does the work and the initiative move forward entirely without you having to drag it or push it or step in every day and ask where it's at? And the whole role doesn't get handed off at once. It's certain sections get handed off at different points in time as they're ready for it. But you don't get freedom just from hiring people. You only get relief if they're operating in task leverage. You only get freedom when they start to own outcomes and be leaders in themselves. This is where a lot of people really struggle. It does feel faster to just answer, right? It does feel faster to just be helpful. It feels like leadership. But every time you just step in and you give the answer to somebody, you train your team and you train your business that it needs you. So instead of doing that, instead of letting them stay in task leverage, be focused on moving through the gap and getting to talent leverage. And in order to do that, you have to make a shift. The shift is in how you lead. It's a shift in how you communicate. It's a shift in the way that you behave. And I'll give you an example. Recently, my assistant came to me with an issue, a big issue, like a really big issue. We had accidentally double billed a client, thousands of dollars. We're not talking she double billed them $25. We're talking it's $1,300 a month, and we accidentally double billed a client. I don't know about you, but if I have a extra $1,300 expense show up on my credit card from a company I work with, I'm really unhappy, especially if I catch it before them, right? So you can imagine how I feel when my assistant brings this situation to me. I'm not excited about it. And my natural gut reaction, my old me of leadership, would have taken it back immediately, mapped out exactly how it should be handled and controlled the outcome because I know the way I need to handle it. I know the best solution. I look at it and I'm like, wow, we have to make this right with the client. This is terrible. Like, I can't believe we did this. And clearly they screwed it up in the first place, which is how this happened. So I can't trust them to do it. But that doesn't grow people. And that doesn't teach them to own their mistakes. So instead, I had to slow down and I had to ask, okay, tell me what happened. What do you think our options are? What are we going to do? What are the risks we now have with this client? Could we lose this person as a client? Are we going to lose money by processing this transaction? What serves the client best in this situation? What serves us well in this situation? What do you think is right to do? Right? So instead of doing what I wanted to do and getting angry and taking the situation back and saying, I can't believe this happened, I'll just handle it, I didn't give her the answers. I helped her think. And she handled it. And she handled it confidently. And we fixed the mistake with the client. Was the client happy? No, of course not. We double billed them $1,300. Did it get handled? Is it still a client? And did we recover from it? Yes. But more importantly, she learned to think through the problem. So if this ever happens again, she can handle it. And that's the shift in how we behave. You're not solving problems anymore at this point. You're building people. So the question that I would ask all of you, and to think about this for a second, is where are you still the bottleneck in your business? Who on your team still depends on you probably a little too much when you know that they could probably handle something? We've just never given them the autonomy to do it. We tend to be the reason people don't take ownership. Because I will tell you this, especially about talented people, they never show up to work and say, man, I can't wait to be completely disappointing and mediocre today. right? Everyone wants fulfillment in what they do. They take pride in what they do when they show up. Now, if you have one of those like 2 or 3% of people who are just like, I'm going to be late every day. I don't want to do my job, and I'm going to intentionally suck and see how long I can ride this out, please fire them. But what I'll also tell you is 98% of people aren't that way. They want to do a good job, and they want to feel the ownership in their role as they progress, especially talented people. Because if we don't give it to them, talented people will leave, and they'll leave under the guise of new opportunities or fit, right? If you've ever had somebody leave and they're just like, well, this opportunity just felt like something I couldn't pass up, or I just don't feel like the business is a great fit for me anymore. I promise you, it's because they weren't feeling ownership and autonomy in their role when they probably had earned the right for it. Because here's the truth: you're not stuck because you're not working hard enough, right? It's not about working harder. When you're stuck in these places, it's because you need more growth, more development. It's because of the role that you're playing. It's from taking that transition of being the operator, being the resource, being the one who steps in and corrects everything, being the one who is the last stop for all tough decisions. It's because of that. And that's where you've got to make the transition from operator to owner. Uh, so I will give you guys this as well as we leave. For those of you that didn't know who are on here, I recently wrote a book on this entire topic, and it is live on Amazon now for pre-orders. But the goodies are that you get the audiobook when you pre-order it. If you are interested in diving deeper into this topic, Leah's already picked up the book. I know she's been listening to it a little bit on maternity leave because she is on maternity leave, obviously. But that's one of the reasons she asked me to come talk on this today. Is she's like, this will be helpful. My people need this. This is a great topic for them while I'm gone. If you are interested in picking up the book, you can scan that QR code on there, or I will drop the link in the chat so you can just pop that window open and then you can have it on there. We've also got all kinds of other goodies for you on there. We've got a community of people who have already started diving into the book. It's been out about 30 days now, so we're super excited about that. Some assessments that tell us where we're at in this so that you know where to start, where we might be the bottleneck, where our team is ready for more ownership than we might not be giving them. Feel free to check that out. You've got the link, you've got the QR code. You'll also get the email from Megan and Leah afterwards on here. But here will be my parting words with you on this. That transition from operator to owner is necessary in the identity that we hold. It's necessary for our team to thrive. And if you ever actually want anything substantial out of your business in terms of freedom within it, not freedom from it, but freedom within it, to do the things that you love, to have the time off that you want, to release that weight that's on your shoulders constantly, you've got to stop being the answer machine to everything. You've got to stop stepping back in, and you have to see yourself as an owner, because you didn't start a business to be owned by it. You started it to own your life in a very specific way, in a way that fulfills you, in a way that provides something for your family, in a way that grows beyond you. Most of us didn't start it just to have a really high paying job. If you did, fantastic. You can stay exactly where you're at. But I know that's not most people. And I also know that behind the curtain, no one talks about it. No one admits that they're like, I don't know why this is so hard. No one talks about the fact that they were never trained on how to get through these nasty phases, right? We just assume because we're the owner, we should know how to do it. Like, it's my business, I should know it. But that's not the case. And that's why I built the roadmap. Super easy, practical. If you've ever been in my training before, you know I love practical. I am not one of those in theory kind of people. I want you all to own your businesses and own your life so that they stop running you. A business that runs you, it's not a business. It's just a job with a decent paycheck. That's it. And if you want a business, we've got to make those transitions. So I'm happy to take any questions for our last few minutes if you guys have them. If you need anything, if there's anything that's stuck with you that you want to talk about, I am happy to answer anything and have those conversations with you. Dawn, Lindsay, Kim, anything from you guys?
Your
Nope.
journeys are always so clear, Liz, that I'm like, no, I have some notes and like this is I've opened the link with your book. I was so excited to see you wrote one because I think it's a good topic and it's something that like you're such an expert in having that roadmap.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I narrate the book, so you get to listen to it. It's great, you
Oh.
know. So you'll be listening to me for 6 hours on it. It's very practical, right? So we definitely get into the nitty gritty. Here's exactly what to do, right? We
Mhm.
talk about here's the concept, here's the problems, here's how you
Mhm.
find why it's a problem for you, and here's how you get through it. You know, I like practical if you're on my stuff ever. Like I love John Maxwell, right? And I leave reading John Maxwell's books and I feel so inspired and so great. And then I'm like, but what do I do?
Yeah.
Like, be a better leader. Okay, great. Can you tell me step by step,
Mhm.
like how, right?
Mhm.
And that's what this book does. It's like, here's exactly the things you need to do. We help you diagnose where the problems are and the next steps on there. So hopefully, yeah, pre-order it. It's $28 and
Yeah.
you get the book and all the goodies that go along with it. So it's like $300 in bonuses and all that kind of jazz. But I'd be honored if you would pre-order it. And if you enjoy it, please let me know. I would genuinely love any of the feedback on there and how it relates to your business.
Awesome.
Right. Well, ladies, thank you all for being here. I know you're probably also ready for Leah to get back and all the cute pictures of the little baby David. If there's anything I can help you with, you all probably know how to reach me. I am on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and you can just email me at lizlandry@kw.com. And I hopefully will see all of you at Mega Camp in a few weeks. Have a great day. Bye.